I have here some chunky water-soluble graphite sticks. Let's see what we can do with them. This video is not sponsored by any of the companies mentioned. I recently uploaded a video where I showed you my complete graphite collection, and there was a lot of different kinds of graphite. Some of you expressed interest in taking a closer look at some of the specific products, and one of those products was the graphite sticks by Pacific Arc. These are a water-soluble graphite stick. They're nice and chunky. They almost look like a graphite crayon. Pretty neat, and I'm pretty curious about them myself because I think I only swatched them a little bit when I first tried them out, and I haven't really done much with them since, so I thought it'd be fun to jump in the sketchbook today, take a closer look at these, see how well they wash out, see if we can get any kind of detail with them, and basically just see what kind of range we can get with these graphite sticks. If you're new here, my name is Shanna Rowe Jackson, also known as Caution Artist at Play, because I play with all different sorts of art supplies. So if you're someone who is a mixed media artist like me and you like to learn about different kinds of supplies, feel free to subscribe so you can see more content like this. So let's go and get to it. Okay, so first off, let's take a closer look at the graphite sticks themselves. As I mentioned, I have two sets. This is the first set with the 2B, 4B, and 6B. So they're all fairly soft and dark. It has a piece of paper wrapped around it that shows the grade of the graphite. And that paper actually comes off fairly easily and can slide back on. So if you wanted to use the side of the stick to create broader strokes, that's a possibility as well. And then here's the second pack with an 8B, a 10B, and a 12B. Again, very similar wrapper, very simple branding. And they just come in nice plastic containers. Now, these are not very expensive. They average around $10 a pack, maybe even a little less on Amazon. I could not find them open stock. However, Lyra does make a water-soluble graphite crayon that looks very similar. I haven't tried it. They only seem to offer 3 grades though, so there's not as much by way of options with the Lyra, but they do offer the Lyra ones open stock at Blick. So if that's something that's important to you, you may want to look into the Lyra ones. However, I'm really excited that I can get 2B all the way through 12B on these. And I feel like the price is not too bad. I think these are going to last a long time because they're so big. Now, I am swatching these out in my sketchbook. I am using the Jane Davenport watercolor journal for a sketchbook, and I want to see these dry. I want to see them washed out with water, and then I'm also going to use the palette method where I scratch these on the surface of a rough palette, lift it with some water on my brush, and bring it over to the paper like watercolor. Now, I washed this top row out on accident. I meant for it to be the second row like it was with the first set. And so, yes, I am twitching right now. I am not happy that they're not going in the same order, but we're just rolling with it, folks. Now I'm using the palette method. I have my Caran d'Ache palette Aquarelle, and I'm just scribbling each one on there and lifting it with my brush and bringing it over. This usually gives us a nice mid-tone and even some lighter tones as well. And I use this often when I'm working with any sort of water-soluble media, such as watercolor pencils, ink tints, any type of water-soluble graphite. I like to use this method because I want to be able to get the full range of values that I can out of these, and this just kind of adds to that. And plus, it gives it a nice wishy-washy look. So I wanted to see how well these held up with that method, and they were beautiful. I was really impressed with how they washed out. Now I am trying some erasers on them. I'm going to try it on the dry ones and the wet, like the ones that have been washed out, to see how well they erase. Because there's a lot of times that water-soluble graphite does not lift after it's been washed out, and it can be difficult to erase as well. I have a tri-tip eraser, and then I also have a Faber-Castell Perfection eraser, which looks like a pencil and can be sharpened like a pencil for fine detail. And they did pretty well with the erasers. I wasn't as impressed with the Perfection eraser. Usually it does better, but we're going to find out more when we do the actual piece. Now, to start off, I wet the paper with water because I want to start light. These could get very dark very quickly. So like with watercolor, I am working from light to dark. I am going to try to build up as slowly as possible. So that means I'm adding as much water as I can so that it will help wash out the color, or the graphite, I should say, a little bit more, and then I'm going to build gradually over time so it doesn't get too dark too fast. Now, I'm not working from a reference, but I had a vision in mind of a nice cloudy day with some water and some little like islands or trees or something on the water so that I could get a full value range. So I'm going to have some really light colors in parts of the sky, some midtones in my clouds and in my water, and then the darkest part is going to be the land with the trees and maybe some grass in the foreground. And I'm just going in with the palette method and doing lots of washes. I am using synthetic Taklon brushes. This one is an Artify one, or what is it? Maybe a Warson? I don't know that brand. It's like a cheap brand that I got off of Amazon. It's basically a generic of the Simply Simmons brushes by Daler Rowney. And then I do have a Holbein Gold that I'm using for the broader areas. And I'm using some paper towel to do some lifting, and I have to say these lift surprisingly well for a water-soluble graphite. I was super impressed. It made it so easy for me to correct mistakes if I needed to and to create certain effects. I normally don't have that easy of a time lifting with water-soluble graphite once it's been washed out, but with these, it was not an issue. Now, I'm coming down into the water, and this is one of my favorite techniques to use with water-soluble pencils, and I'm going to let the lines do most of the work for me. I'm putting my waves in, and I'm using my harder sticks in the background because I want it to be lighter back there, and then I'm using my softer sticks in the foreground because I want it to be darker. And I am putting in the waves, and then I'm just going to wash over it with some water and let the lines that I put in for the waves do the work to create these wishy-washy waves. But also, the graphite is going to wash out into the water around the waves and leave a lighter wash in between those waves. So it kind of gives the idea of the darker shadows of the waves with the light reflecting on the water. Obviously, that's not going to be a perfect technique, so I'm coming in and I'm defining those waves a little bit more. Again, I'm not looking for perfection here. I am doing this because I want to get a feel for these sticks, and I am really enjoying myself. I'm pleasantly surprised with how well these wash out. Nice, smooth washes. I was afraid because I've never really heard of this company. Like, I think they sell some good drafting tools, but not as many art supplies. And so I wasn't sure what to expect from these. And a lot of times, water-soluble products won't wash out very well, and they'll leave too much of a gritty texture for my taste. I was pleasantly surprised that these washed out very smooth. And you're going to see some areas that aren't completely washed out. It's still going to have that gritty look, but that's mainly just because I haven't washed them out yet. I've come over with the dry stick over places that I've already washed out, and so you're getting that texture of the paper showing through. But in the places where I did wash it out, you can really tell, especially in the swatches, how smooth it washes out compared to the way it looks dry. Super, super impressed with that. And it went pretty far in the water as well, so a little goes a long way. And I think that's perfect because these are so thick and chunky that there's a lot of product to each one of these sticks. I think these are going to last a very long time, which is one reason why I'm not all that upset that I couldn't find them open stock. Normally, I don't like to get a product if I can't buy it open stock, because if I fall in love with it, then I'm not going to be able to replace it that easily, especially if I use one grade more than another, and then I can't replace it as easily. I think these are each going to last me so long that that's not really going to be an issue for me, and then if I need to buy another set, it's so inexpensive that it's not going to hurt my feelings any. So now I'm coming in, I think this is it's either my 10B or my 12B. It's my 10B, and I'm putting in some little islands. And for the further away one, I used less pressure and lighter strokes, fewer strokes, so that it will look a little bit lighter and appear to be a little bit further in the distance. And then for the closer one, I used strokes that are closer together and a little bit more pressure, so it'll be darker once I wash it out. And I didn't get too crazy with it, but I was pretty happy with the fact that I was able to get some pretty good detail in there. You can tell that those are supposed to be trees. I was worried because these are so chunky that I wouldn't be able to get very good detail. Now, you're not going to get the finest detail possible. You could probably use a utility knife and shave these down a little bit more, which I suspect is going to be the way to sharpen them to begin with. You might be able to get a sharper point on them, but for what I am doing here, it worked out just fine for those trees. And the other thing to think about is, obviously, these aren't going to fit into a typical pencil sharpener. However, when working with a pencil or a product like this, it's important to rotate the product in your hand while you're working so it can wear evenly, and that will help keep the tip on your crayon or on your pencil a little bit longer. And so I was doing that as well so that I could keep evening out that tip so that it stays to the amount of sharpness pretty much that it was before, because I don't want it to get blunt too quickly. So it's going to be hard to see here because it's sped up, but I often rotate it, and I do that with all my pencils. It's a good habit to get in while you're working, so you don't have to sharpen your pencils as often because you're wearing them on their side more evenly, if that makes sense. You could also run them across a sandpaper strip to sharpen them that way as well. However, if you do decide to sharpen them with a utility knife, I recommend keeping the little shards that come off, put them in a palette, and since they're water soluble, you can continue to use them and waste less product that way. Back to the project now, I used the 12B for the foreground grass, and I came in with a mono eraser to erase some highlights. Then I'm just coming back to the background and buffing up some of the details. So overall, I was able to get a very good range with these, even though there weren't any harder graded, I keep wanting to call these pencils, harder graded sticks here. The 2B got light enough, you can tell in that sky that I was able to get the amount of light that I wanted, but there's still graphite there. So if you use a variety of techniques, from using them dry, using them washed out, and then using the palette technique, you can get a full range of values here, even though these are all technically in the darker value range. Varying the amount of water helps as well. If you use more, it will lighten things. If you use less water, it will stay darker. Something that I noticed is that these are fairly matte. I really enjoy the fact that they're not overly shiny, even with them being dry. There's going to be a little bit of sheen, but not as bad as just a regular graphite. Water-soluble graphite tends to be a little bit matte once it's washed out anyways, but I didn't think these were too overly shiny, even in the swatches where they were put on dry. Now, I am coming through with a blending stump to see how well it blends out dry, even after it's been washed out, and that worked pretty well as well. So in certain areas where I want to clean up the edges and things like that, a regular old blending stump worked really well for that. Here is a scanned-in version of the sketchbook piece. I love how this came out. I think I'm going to offer prints on my print site because I'm pretty happy with it. Let me know what you think of this piece in the comments below. I had a ton of fun with it. I had so much fun with these. I was really pleasantly surprised with how high quality these were, especially since I never really had ordered anything from Pacific Arc before, at least not anything art supply related that I can recall. And so I just was really impressed with the quality of the graphite and how well they washed out and the range I could get. I'm super excited to use these for more projects. I think they're going to last a really long time because there's really a lot of product in each stick. And they were fantastic for covering large areas, but they worked surprisingly well in smaller detail areas as well. So I'm super stoked about it. Let me know if you liked this and if you would be curious to try these as well. I had a lot of fun with them. You'll probably see them in future videos, especially when I work just in a regular graphite piece, because I often mix the different kinds of graphite I work with. So this probably won't be the last time you see these. But yeah, ton of fun. I will see you next week. You have a fantastic day. Bye.